Welcome to InterPartyConflict, the podcast where we answer your questions so you can have the best tabletop gaming experience possible. My name is Gabe.
And my name is Jeff.
And we're going to answer your questions today. But first, I have a question. And that question is, Jeff.
Yeah?
How are you doing today?
Feeling pretty popular today. Sorry, that was my phone.
Do you want me to do that over?
You don't have to.
Okay, I'll leave it in. All right. Yeah. So how you doing?
Hold on, let me just turn my phone down here. Sorry, everybody. Sorry. Doing pretty good because Smash Brothers came out.
Oh my goodness! Yes, it did.
So,
this game.
I haven't been putting a lot of time into it.
I have.
Not as much as I'd like. But it's been a blast so far. Been having fun.
It's been a smash success. Oh my goodness, it's so much fun. I don't want to spend too much time talking about this.
Sure.
I'd rather spend that time playing it.
Right.
So maybe if we finish early, we can play some Smash or something.
We should just be playing it while we're doing the podcast.
So I do these little Patreon, like every couple weeks, I try to do like a little update where I talk about what sort of media I've been consuming and so on and so on. And I haven't put one out in a while. Actually, it's been about a month since I put one out. I thought about just doing it while I was playing Smash Brothers, but I don't think I will. By the time this goes out, that will have already gone out for our patrons. But
sure.
Anyway, it's so much fun. It's a blast. It's such a good fun game to play, and there's so much to do in it because unlike a lot of other games, they made it so that you basically have to unlock everything, which is like the best part of the game in my opinion.
Yeah. No, there is going to be like DLC and stuff like that.
There will be, yeah.
But I mean, like they've put so much into the main game that you will have to unlock
70 characters.
Yeah, you're unlocking like I feel like every other match I'm unlocking a character, which is fun because it's just like, oh cool, who's this next?
Yeah.
And I do find out that I haven't seriously played a Smash game in a while. Like the last one that came out, like I played a bit of it and even got it on the 3DS and only played that a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm terrible at it.
Yeah,
I'm not very good.
I'm okay at it. Nowhere near competitive level by any means whatsoever.
Yeah. I mean, I've played against people who I feel have like who I feel are like have a better grasp on the game and like in the past I feel like I've done okay.
Sure.
But like just trying to play it the last few days, I'm like I can't like just on like I think like the default difficulty for a computer player is like at like 3 out of 10 basically.
Something like that, yeah.
And like I remember like immediately like I'm good at video games. I'll bump it up to 5, and I was like I'm gonna turn it back down. Until I get my my water legs back. Yeah.
But no, it's a lot of fun. I took it the day it came out. I took it with me to work, and I got some coworkers that I never interact with. I was like, hey, you want to play Smash Brothers? I had 4 Joy-Cons with me, so we sat there and played Smash Brothers a little bit. And yeah, it's so much fun. And it's one of those games that like, I love the fact that I can take it with me anywhere and anywhere I go, I have all the controllers necessary to just grab people off the street and play it.
Just be like, hey.
Not that I necessarily would, but I could.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So enough about Smash Brothers.
Sure.
Maybe more about that as we go. We'll see what happens. Yeah. You want to go ahead and just hop into this? Well, before we I just want to say, a couple weeks ago, we talked about passive perception and how awful it is.
Yeah.
I had someone on the Discord, I think it was Damien, pointing out that apparently Jeremy Crawford did sort of backpedal on that ruling that he made.
Okay.
But he didn't I didn't actually get to see the ruling. I haven't looked for it too hard, but like he quote unquote clarified it. I don't care what his clarification is. It's a bad mechanic. And then I got into a little bit of a Twitter argument with somebody yesterday over it because there was a Sage ruling. Sage. I follow somebody on Twitter it's basically just like I don't know if it's automated or not, but it's like they take rulings where somebody has asked Jeremy Crawford or Mike Murals a specific question and then they respond to it, and then this one retweets it.
That's okay, cool.
And one of the questions was about passive perception, and Jeremy Crawford gave a response that was basically like, well, passive perception is up to the DM whether to include it in a game or not. And so I responded with, if it's up to the DM whether to include it in a game or not. Maybe it shouldn't be prominently featured on every character sheet.
Right. Yeah. We kind of talked about that.
Yeah.
Where like if it is only supposed to be a tool for the DM, it
The
should.
book certainly doesn't seem to say so.
Right. It shouldn't even be in the player's handbook.
Yeah.
It should be in
And
the DM's.
I even looked over in the player's handbook where it is, and like it does not give any indication that it is up to the DM to include. Now, just so everybody knows, I know everything is up to the DM to include or not.
Right. Yeah.
But not to the point where that's the design of the game.
Yeah.
Like everything that is in the book, it is to be assumed, unless the DM says otherwise, unless the DM specifically chooses something not to include, it is
Right.
assumed. It is a reasonable assumption for players to think that whatever's in the player's handbook will exist in the game.
Right. Yeah. It's because we're all spending this money to buy this book. Every player is expected to have access to this book and to have read the rules to some extent.
Yeah.
So like there is a general consensus like, hey, we are going to be following these rules
Exactly.
unless other, unless
otherwise
otherwise
stated.
agreed upon,
Yeah.
a change of the rules.
Yeah. Well, some guy on Twitter responded like, oh, well, the spell section is on the sheet. Does that mean my barbarian can cast spells? And my response was, well, I mean, if he has spell slots, then yes.
Yeah.
But if he doesn't, then no. Just because something's on the sheet doesn't mean that every character has access to it. But if every character has a passive perception, it's like
right. That stat exists for every character.
right.
Every character you
There
make.
aren't variant rules on the official character sheet. You don't even see a section about feats, even though feats are something that I would say 99% of groups use.
Sure.
Because feats are an optional rule. So there's going to be a section where you can put feats, but there won't be a section on the sheet that says feats.
Right.
Because again, it is an optional rule. That is explicitly an optional rule.
Yeah.
And this guy also was saying that players don't make skill checks. They ask the DM if they can make a skill check and the DM makes a decision. My response was, my players don't ask to exist in the game world. My players say what they want to do. I adjudicate what they want to do.
Right, yeah. You say, I want to unlock that door. You don't say, I'm going to roll this.
You don't say to the DM, can I make a skill check? You say, I want to make a skill check. And the DM says, okay, yeah, that sounds good. Go for it. It's a very small distinction.
Sure.
But I think it shows a level of adversarialness that we've talked about in previous episodes. If the DM's attitude is, you have to run your ideas by me or it doesn't work.
Sure.
That's one thing. If the DM's attitude is instead, oh, you want to do that? Okay, let's do it this way. Mm-hmm. It's a small distinction, but an important one. It's just, I think that passive perception is a bad mechanic. It's fine as an explicitly variant DM-only rule. And the way it is not presented as that. I looked it over in the player's handbook. It is not at all presented that way. Mm-hmm. It is presented right along in the front of the skill section.
Yeah.
This is how passive checks work. They give a couple examples. And this guy on Twitter was like, oh, the examples in the player's handbook are, DM discretion. It's like, well, not really. They give 2 specific examples for when you use passive perception. That's it. There is no mention of the DM whatsoever in that section of the book. Anyway, don't want to harp on that too much. I already went over this 2 weeks ago, but it's just when 6th edition comes out, inevitably there will not be a passive perception. I guarantee you. It is a bad mechanic, and every time the developers try to rule on it on how it works, they contradict every other ruling about how it works because it doesn't.
The whole thing where that's the minimum you can. That was just so.
That was so bad.
That's just
Jeff,
so. Oh my goodness.
So bad.
Okay.
Anyway, enough. Getting into this episode. So Jeff, I want you to imagine you are you're walking into work. You're going to work at the office.
Okay.
And you come around a corner and you see one of the big wigs at your work.
Okay.
I say big wigs because he's very large and he wears a wig. He's about 30 feet tall. He's got a wig made out of strands of spun gold.
Okay.
And you notice him and he is eating a person. No. He's not eating a person. He's eating a triple-decker cheeseburger with bacon and all sorts. he's eating stuff he's eating way too many calories.
Sure.
True, he's a gigantic red dragon, so maybe he needs a lot of calories.
Okay,
but
yeah.
He's eating this burger. He's sort of like hiding in the corner, like eating this burger. And you realized you had to talk to him about something. You had to like bring some reports to his attention. And so you sort of clear your throat to get his attention. And he turns and he looks very embarrassed. And he sees like he's still got half this burger in his hand. And he says, I'm on a diet. Please, you can't tell my wife. Don't tell my wife that I was eating this burger.
Okay.
And then he sweetens the deal. He says, tell you what, if you don't tell my wife and you don't tell anybody that I was eating this burger in here, because I'm not supposed to because I'm on this diet, I will give you an item from the dragon's hoard.
I grab one of the fries off his plate and go, you got yourself a deal.
There you go.
Oh, wait, that was the item.
Oh, no.
Okay.
All right. Well, so the item today was submitted by Reddit user Takeover Mars. And we mentioned this on a on a social media discussion question a few weeks ago. Takeover Mars apparently blackmailed a dragon to have the dragon enchant his rapier.
Oh.
And because they also did some nice things, the dragon made sure that it would be good, and the dragon took his time with it.
Uh-huh.
So that's kind of where I was going. I was trying to think, what is a way that you could blackmail a dragon that wouldn't be very problematic in today's climate. So,
well, I mean, like, I feel like blackmailing a dragon isn't necessarily the same as like blackmailing like a politician or something like that. I guess. Like, because like blackmailing a dragon is more like, I don't know. There's always that mythos that like dragons really like puzzles and stuff like that.
Yeah,
it's that sort of thing. Like, you're sort of, it's more like you're making like a deal with the dragon. I feel like.
Well, in this case, the dragon did not want you to tell his wife that he was eating a burger because he is on that diet. No wonder he's not losing any weight. Just saying. Anyway, the item is Ionis. Ionis is an intelligent rapier of exceptional quality. It bears some command over the flow of time, bending it to slow the wits of its victims. Ionis has sentience. It is a sentient, neutral, evil weapon with an intelligence of 20, wisdom of 12, and charisma of 14. It has hearing and dark vision out to a range of 60 feet. The sword's purpose is to seek truth in all things and had a particular obsession with knowledge related to immortality. The sword has this, the rapier has this temporal disruption ability. Ionis has 7 charges. While holding it, you can use an action to expend 1 or more of its charges to cast the slow spell, save DC 15, from the rapier. For 1 charge, you can cast the 3rd level version of the spell. You can increase the spell slot level by 1 for each additional charge you spend. Ionis regains 1d6 plus 1 expended charges daily at midnight. When you attack a creature with Ionis and the attack hits, you can use a bonus action to expend charges as though you had used an action to cast slow from it, targeting only the creature hit. Proficiency with a rapier allows you to add your proficiency bonus to the attack roll for any attack you make with it. So it's an intelligent rapier. It can see and it has dark vision. It seeks truth, and it is obsessed with gaining knowledge relating to immortality, like becoming a lich, or other methods of extending life.
I mean, it's a rapier, right?
It is a rapier.
I feel like a rapier's lifespan could be pretty long.
maybe. Yeah, I guess the question has to be asked, like, why does a rapier have an interest in immortality? I don't know. Maybe it has the personality of a specific creature put into it.
Right, yeah. So like the creature put into it was seeking immortality in a somewhat successful, somewhat failed attempt of gaining immortality. They got turned into a rapier.
Right.
Like they've become something that is technically immortal. You know, like, yeah, I guess a magical rapier could still be destroyed.
Yeah,
but
like, so.
I don't, and I guess technically if there was enough weathering, it could age. But I feel like you're a lot closer to immortality when you're a rapier than when you're a person.
Yeah. So this is a huge tangent, but do you remember the show Sea Lab 2021?
Yes.
In the very first episode of that, the characters are, while the underwater research laboratory is like exploding,
right? They
are debating amongst themselves. They're debating amongst themselves the benefits and drawbacks of having your brain put in a robot body.
Yeah. Would I put my brain in a robot body?
Exactly. So the whole place is exploding around them. Quinn is like doing his best to stop everybody from dying, but then they're all just standing around like, no, but like, what if you killed a human? You'd be like, they'd freeze you in carbonite for 1,000 years. Well, there is an episode very late in the series where they do all get their brains put in robot bodies, but it ends up being not at all what they expected, and they're all very unhappy with their decision. And so maybe this person had the personality put into this sword because they thought it would let them become immortal, and I mean it did, but now they're like, I have to learn a better way to become immortal. I have to find a way to be put into something other than a rapier.
Right, yeah.
But then its abilities relating to time, so like you can cast slow from it, and then you can use a bonus action to cast slow, but it only targets one creature. Because if I'm not mistaken, slow affects more people?
Yeah, because I want to say it's basically the opposite of haste, which is multiple. It does have multiple targets, I think. Maybe a higher level.
I just checked. Slow affects up to 6 creatures of your choice.
Ooh.
Normally. So yeah, you can cast slow and affect up to 6 people, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
Or you can, as a bonus action, use a charge, I'm guessing, to affect 1 person.
Yeah, so the idea is like you can attack, and with that, like you can basically like hit that same target with a slow as well or something.
Yeah, so definitely a useful weapon.
Yeah.
That's, gains back 1d6 plus 1 charges at midnight.
Was there anything about it being able to communicate?
Ooh, that's a good question. I don't think it says so. I would imagine it could either speak or have telepathy.
Sure. That'd be interesting though, to be an intelligent an intelligent item that cannot itself communicate, but if you had a way to use telepathy, you could communicate with it. Like it does not know telepathy, but it can think in language. So, like, in order to communicate with it, you would have to have telepathy.
Yeah. This item actually calls into question a little bit of like an existential terror in that it might be that this person had their soul put into this rapier because they thought it was their only option to become immortal. And then they realized that they are now immortal, but they cannot communicate with anybody.
Right. So like gets in the hands of like a first level warlock.
I suppose, yeah. Eventually it does gain. Somebody comes along that can communicate with it.
Right.
So it tries exerting its will over.
Right.
That
it's
person.
Like, oh my god, finally somebody to talk to. I have so many things.
Exactly.
Have you ever tried? It's like a new flavor of Skittles, I think.
And then they can't just like be, hey, please put my soul in another body, because then the warlock is gonna be like, whoa, you're freaky, I'm just gonna toss you in the ditch somewhere.
Right.
So they try to like say, hey, you should maybe look up some knowledge about immortality. Everybody wants to be immortal, right?
Yeah. And
then they're like, the rapier is like looking over the shoulder of the warlock, and then someday the rapier is gonna find a way to switch bodies with the warlock.
Ooh.
Kind of like Captain Ginyu is what I'm thinking.
Sure.
There's some real potential with this item here. Yeah, so I think this is a really cool item. I think the abilities that it has is really cool, and just the extrapolation that you can take from the intelligence and from its interests and so on. I think there's a lot of potential there.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Some pretty cool plot hooks to be gotten from that.
No, it's a rapier, not a hook.
Thank you, Jeff.
Yeah. It's piercing.
I'm gonna take a stab at this.
Oh, ow!
All right. So that was Ionis from Reddit user Takeover Mars. So thank you, Takeover Mars. Mm-hmm. And yeah, so this was an item that was made specifically for them, because we had the question about like what's a magic item that was made specifically for your character.
Oh, neat.
So,
okay.
So that's what prompted this response. So yeah, thank you very much for that, Jeff. If somebody wanted to submit items for us to discuss on the Dragon's Hoard, or if they have questions for us to discuss, or stories for the funeral pyre, how would they get those to us?
They could send us an email at InterPartyConflict@gmail.com.
Yes. And before we go any further, we have a giveaway to give away today.
Ooh.
So, Jeff, who is our winner?
Our winner today is Michael T.
winner.
Gobble, gobble, gobble.
Yes, congratulations, Michael T. And I know him. He is a coworker of mine.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, pretty cool dude. And so you should be getting that pretty soon, Michael, in your email. You can give it a few days because we've had, it seems like there's a little bit of a delay lately. So just give it a few days. And if you haven't gotten it within a week, but by the following episode, let us know. I usually get a copy, so I can forward that to you.
Yeah.
So
that's the Chapel on the Cliffs.
Chapel on the Cliffs. Did I not say Chapel on the Cliffs?
I don't know.
I always
remember.
I always forget whether I said it or not. So yeah, Chapel on the Cliffs, courtesy of Goblin Stone. Goblin Stone is a great company that makes great adventures. So Michael, be sure to let Goblin Stone know whether you liked it or didn't like it, so that they can continue to make great products.
Yep.
So Jeff, if somebody wanted to enter this drawing, how would they do that?
They could send us an email at interpartyconflict@gmail.com, but in the subject line, you'd want to put Chapel on the Cliffs.
Yes. And yeah, we do a drawing every week. So we're always in need of more entrants.
Yep.
So, send us a thing and you're very likely to win fairly soon.
Yeah.
All right. And before we get to the episode, I want to thank our wonderful patrons for giving us their hard-earned money and helping us make this show. So, our show has a Patreon, which you can find by going to patreon.com/InterPartyConflict. Patreon is an online platform where you can pledge a certain amount of money per month to help us make the show. And then when you do, you get bonus content for it. So we have fantasy fiction every month for every one of our patrons. We have outtakes. I put some outtakes up a few days ago. A huge, big chunk of outtakes. A whole bunch. People got notifications over and over and over. I think I might start doing it, compiling all of them into one.
Sure.
It's like one, like every month or so, you just get like a 45-minute thing. Maybe not 45 minutes, but
right, yeah.
You'll get like a big chunk of outtakes. I don't know. I've been doing it for this long with doing just each individual thing. Some of which are like 5 seconds. Some are like 4 minutes.
Right.
So I don't know if I want to make that change, but if I don't know. I'll think about it. Some we have also got bonus episodes for $5 and up. We've got a monthly Roll20 game that I or Jeff runs for our top tier patrons. And I'll also write about your character if you're a top tier patron. So like in my monthly fiction, I will write a short story about your character. So if that sounds interesting, if you want to see what cool stuff we've got on there for patrons, go to patreon.com/InterPartyConflict. See if anything stands out to you. And if it does, toss us a couple bucks and help us make the show better. And hey, if you can't toss us any bucks, if you can't afford it, or if you just don't want to, tell a friend.
Yeah.
Tell a friend, leave us a review on iTunes, anything you can do like that. Or hey, just the fact that you're listening is good enough.
Yeah.
But we prefer other stuff too.
Right, yeah.
So yeah, thank you all. Thanks to all of our patrons. You guys are awesome. Also, 2 more quick things. Go check out Crit Academy at critacademy.com. They recently put out a book that I helped write, which is a compilation of their unearthed tips and tricks.
Oh, right.
On DM's Guild. I'll put the link in the show notes. So that's a great product. You guys should check that out. And again, listen to their podcast. Is a great show. And then also D&D Character Lab. Garen and Dan make characters every week and then pit them against each other and debate whose character is better. So
nice.
2 more great podcasts. They're so much fun. Go check them out. Also check out that Unearthed Tips and Tricks book. Enough admin. You want to get into questions?
Sure. Let's get going.
Cool. And for the listeners, we had a probably like 10-minute tangent in there that got cut out too. So so patrons have something to look forward to.
Right. Sure. A little outtake there.
Yeah.
All right. Our first question comes from Happy Gilmore through email, and they ask, most encounters have the players acting separately, but all monsters act on the same initiative. Is this a disadvantage to the players, and should the DM accommodate for that?
Yeah.
Speaking as a DM, no. Speaking as somebody who's DM'd like twice in the last like 20 years.
Sure.
And those 2 times being like within the last month.
Yeah.
The few times I've put through initiative, like I spread it out. Like I deliberately spread it out. 'Cause like I don't like it's easier to just have everything go on one initiative, and it's so daunting to have each individual monster have its own initiative. So what I did is I just evenly distributed it. Like there was there were 4 players and 6 monsters. So I just have a player go, then 2 monsters, and a player go, then 2 monsters, and a player go, then 2 monsters.
Oh, okay.
It just kind of even things out. it like that way it wasn't like all 6 monsters go at once, and like because the closest player, like because like they're all near one player, it's like, well, they would technically all just go for that one player.
Yeah.
Like, and that seems really rough on that one player.
It can be.
And if I deliberately say like, well, I could gang up on this one player and kill them immediately.
Yeah.
But because I don't want to do that, I'm just gonna like, well, this guy, they all spread out evenly, and that sort of seems like I'm sort of fixing the battle, basically, you know?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. I think that this does happen often. I do it. I don't do, not all monsters go on the same initiative. I'll usually have it be like groups of monsters do. So like if there's 4 goblins, 2 orcs, and a dragon or something, I'll have the goblins go on one initiative, the orcs go on another initiative, and the dragon go on its own.
Yeah, you sort them by their stat block, basically.
I would say that this is primarily done for simplicity and lack of bookkeeping.
Yeah.
Because I've been in groups, no offense to, actually Michael T was the DM in this case. He's a coworker of mine. I was in a game that he was running, and for a little while, like I always, whenever I'm a player, I try to offer to take some of the bookkeeping off the DM's hands. So like I was keeping track of initiative, and I was doing it where all these monsters went on this initiative, all these monsters went on this other one, and he went along with that, but then he didn't like it, so he went to having each monster have its own initiative.
Uh-huh.
And oh boy, when you're having a fight with like 10 different goblins, each of which has its own initiative, it gets real old real fast.
Sure.
There's advantages and disadvantages to both, but like, oh man, when it's like, okay, goblin number 1 goes on a 6. Goblin number 2 goes on a 15. Goblin number 3 goes on a 4. Goblin number 4 goes on a 5. Goblin number 5 goes on a 12. And you're just going through. It's just like, that's so much to keep track of.
I feel like you should number the goblins after initiative.
Well, okay, that's a good point. That's a good point.
So like you roll the initiative for each individual goblin,
yeah,
and then in the order that they go, that is their number. So like, whichever goblin goes first is goblin number 1.
But another thing that I realized happened was you basically ended up with the same thing, because let's say 2 of the players go on like an 18 and a 19, and then one of the other players goes on like a 10, and then a player goes on an 8. And then 7 of the 10 goblins go on
like in between
an 11, a 13, a 15, a 16.
Yeah. And
then it's like, okay, well, I mean, you've done the exact same thing, but there's twice as much bookkeeping for it.
Sure. That's a good point.
So in theory, it would be interesting. It could be interesting to have it be that they all go on their own initiative, but you still have the DM is one player, and each of the individual players are one player.
Yeah.
So that one player being the DM is still in control of all of these monsters, which may end up all going in the same way anyway, but now the DM has to keep track of, well, this one went first, and then this one went after that, and so on. You can say that it's unfair to the players. That argument has lots of stuff on its side. You can definitely make that argument, but I just think that it's simpler and it's just easier. Like if I'm the DM and I have 5 goblins that all go on the same initiative, I can do some fun little stuff with those goblins. I can have 2 of these goblins are going to put their hands out. The third goblin's going to jump on their hands and jump off and do like a leaping attack.
Sure.
Or something. In theory, the players could do that too, but the players are different players. So like they would have to independently coordinate what they're doing, whereas the DM is one mind, so the DM can more easily do that. I mean, I'm all for players trying to coordinate stuff in combat. Yeah. That's awesome. If they want to do that, I would try to accommodate that.
Yeah. There's even I think via the
D&D Character Lab guys.
Yeah, the D&D Character Lab guys made, I think, like a Wombo's Guide to Combos.
Yes. Yeah, they do have a book all about doing coordinated attacks.
Yeah, that's really cool.
That's a cool concept. That would be great if players did that, but I think it's less likely to happen because the players are individual players, all with their own wants and needs and hang-ups and so on. Some players might want to be like, well, I want to be the one making the attack and doing the cool thing.
Right.
So
Like I built my character to swing this sword.
Exactly.
And you want me to waste my turn doing what?
right. So I'm not saying that can't happen or shouldn't happen, just that it's less likely to happen on its own. To your point, which is, I've got all these monsters, they could all just attack the same guy. They could do that, arguably they could do that even if they had different initiatives, if they all went relatively close to each other.
Sure.
But I would say that to a point that's a symptom of unimaginative DMing or just like lazy DMing or lazy encounter design.
Yeah.
If it makes the most sense for this whole horde of enemies to all attack the same person, it makes sense for them to do that. And they should do that if you're going for the most effective combat. However, if you're going for an interesting combat, you might want to have them spread out, even if it doesn't make sense.
Sure.
Players rarely do what is most effective. So should this unorganized group of goblins do it? Exactly.
Like, why are you attacking a different enemy? You should all focus on the same enemy.
Now, I've got some thoughts on that. Do you want to get into this now, or do you want to save it for another episode?
I mean, we can get into it now. I don't know.
I mean, I'll just say that I think that is a very, very metagame attitude. Not that that's a bad thing. The game, there is so much metagame that goes on that is positive. So if the players are trying to be as effective as possible, then yeah, they can look at the tactical field in front of them and they can say, let's all focus on this guy. But if let's say you're with a bunch of friends and a gang of thugs attacks you, like you're leaving the movie theater or something and some guys jump out of the shadows and attack you. I doubt all of you are going to be ignoring the guy that is trying to punch you and all focus on the same guy.
Sure. Like, in the panic of a fight and stuff like that. Yeah, I get that. Although I would say if like in a real situation, it's not that easy.
Yeah.
But I feel like if you did manage to say like, hey, let's all just gang up on the biggest guy.
Yeah.
I think that still would be pretty effective even in real life. Cause they're like, not that this is something I actively watch, but my coworkers sometimes watch these terrible videos where it's basically just people beating up each other. And I'm like, why are you watching this? Yeah. But
people are terrible. Go on.
The stuff I've seen where it's like a bunch of people are all getting rowdy and everybody's getting like, everyone's just waiting for somebody to throw the first punch sort of thing. And there might be like, some scuffles here and there, but then it's always like, one guy gets beat up real bad and everybody just sort of like backs off and watches it, sure. So I feel like you could sort of translate that into D&D as like, well, if you just gang up on this one goblin and it just beat the crap out of him, the other ones are going to be like, whoa, wait a minute.
And I also do have a counter argument to my own argument. And that is, if you were leaving a movie theater and got attacked by thugs, you're not a trained fighter. You're not a person who has been fighting your entire life.
Yeah, I'm going back into the theater where there's, potentially security.
Sure. So, I mean, I'm not saying that one approach is right and one approach is wrong. I'm just saying like there are reasons to that a person might attack focus fire. There are reasons a group might not focus fire.
Yeah. Well, I just think like, because I know I as a player, you're right. It is somewhat metagaming. It's just like, I know as a player that like, if you just take out one enemy in the first round, that is one enemy that you're not going to have to worry about anymore. Yeah. That is one less initiative for the DM to keep track of. That is one less attack roll that could possibly hurt somebody. Like if you're spreading out your attacks, like if there are 5 enemies and 5 players and each player hits an enemy, most likely none of them are going to go down.
Right.
But if all 5 players focused on one enemy, at least one of them is probably going to go down. And then the whole next round, you only have 4 enemies.
Yeah.
Because like, if you don't kill one enemy in the first round, like that, I feel like, I don't know, what are you doing? It's like, you're going to have to deal with the enemy for a whole nother round.
Yeah.
But you're right. It's not, that is more metagaming than I would.
Yeah. And again, that's not a bad thing.
Right.
Like you do want to be effective when you play the game.
Yeah.
I'm not looking down on anybody who does focus fire. I'm just saying there's arguments on both sides.
I'm thinking from like a wargamer perspective. Sure. Like, I'm playing Warhammer in my mind, that sort of thing. Where it's just like, you want to finish off the squad, you want to finish off the unit, because then that's one more, like if that unit's gone, they can no longer hold the objective, which is how you get points in some of the games.
So, you could just have, in theory, yeah, as the DM, you could just have all the enemies focus on just one guy and then instantly obliterate them.
Yeah.
However, that's not very interesting. If you're watching a superhero movie where, like, let's say it was, I don't know, the Captain America Civil War, and there's that, in my opinion, really idiotic scene where all the superheroes just line up on two sides and just run at each other. What if instead all of them just focused on, let's just knock out Black Widow. Okay, Black Widow's out.
Right.
Next one, they just all focus on Spider-Man. I don't remember who's on what side. That's not as interesting, even if it would be more effective than pairing off and so on.
I feel like it could be written interesting, like if it was sort of like a strategic plan that they sort of like talked out and stuff. Because that could happen in a D&D game where like the players are like sneaking up on the enemy and they're like, okay, here's what we're gonna do. Mm-hmm. We're all gonna focus on this one, on this target.
Sure.
It's like, oh, he's that ranged guy up there. He's gonna be a problem. We need to take him out as soon as possible. So like coming up with a plan in character could be neat.
Yeah. But my point is just that, like,
what are we talking about?
we're talking about having them all act on the same initiative.
Right.
Whether or not they all focus on just the nearest guy and then kill him, I mean, that very well could happen even if you roll individual initiatives. So again, having them all act on the same initiative is largely just done for simplicity's sake.
Yeah.
Because again, the DM is one mind controlling all of these monsters, so that the more that they can do to simplify the process and make it easier to keep track of and so on is probably going to be better in the long run.
Yeah. I do think your take on it's probably the best way to do it is to divide them up by their stat block. Mm-hmm. You're dividing them up by their type.
Sure.
It's a lot easier to, that way you're not looking at two stat blocks every time there's a, monster taking a turn. Mm-hmm. So it's like, the goblins and the hobgoblins are on two different initiatives. When it's the goblin's turn, all you got to do is look at the goblin stat block, just apply that to each one of the ones that are going. So you're not...
if I've got like 3 pages bookmarked in the book, I don't want to have to, in a given round, go from the first bookmark to the second one, back to the first one, to the third one, the second one, third one, first one.
Yeah.
Just, I know right now, all the goblins are going first, then all the orcs, and then the dragon.
Yeah.
I guess a question should be asked, would it be a problem to let the players all go on the same initiative too?
So like, just to sort of like balance it out.
It would make players...
The initiative would only be among the players, basically.
Pretty much, yeah. It would basically just be, do the players go first or do the bad guys go first?
Yeah.
It would make the players more powerful.
Yeah, it would.
Because coordination is a very powerful thing. That being said, the monsters get to coordinate too, in theory. I mean, when I'm doing it, even if I have them all act like by type, if I had Goblin 1 go, and then Goblin 2, then Goblin 3, and then Goblin 4, I'm going to try to have them go in that same order every time. So, like, if Goblin 1 picked up picked up like a crossbow or something, I'm going to try to have them all go in the same order so that it is as if they all were individual things. Like, I'm not going to have, I'll wait and see what number 2 does and then have number 1 go.
Yeah.
Does that make any sense?
Yeah, because I feel like if you're gonna pick and choose which ones go first, you're more tempted to pick and choose the ones that are giving you the advantage.
Exactly. So I don't want it to skew away from the players any more than it has to.
Yeah.
So like I'm not going to try to metagame it myself to give the enemies an advantage. I'll just try to be as consistent as I can and also try to make it an interesting fight.
Gotcha.
So you could have the players do that too. I don't think it's going to break anybody's game. I would encourage it. I would say try it out. Try it out, see how it works for your group, see how you guys like it. I just think it'll probably make the fight a little bit less interesting because there's going to be like a big period of strategy every round. Whereas with the DM, a lot of the time when I'm running, I try to have the monsters do simple things. I might have them coordinate a couple things, but when I do so, I'm giving up, in that example I gave with like the 2 goblins holding their hands out, I'm giving up 2 goblins in order to give 1 goblin a cool attack. Not necessarily because it's effective, but because I'm trying to make it interesting.
Sure.
The players are probably not going to try to make it interesting. They're probably going to try to make it as effective as possible, which is fine, and maybe they will, maybe they won't. I feel like they probably will. And so I just feel like if you do that every round, it's going to be, okay, guys, let's figure out what we're going to do this round. You do this one. Well, I don't know what if I want to do that. I want to use this other ability instead. Okay, we'll come back to you. Okay, you do this thing, and then once you attack, let's do that and see what happens. So they go and they roll. Okay, now that's happened. Now you use your ability. Okay, you use your ability. Now we got to rethink what the other players are going to do. I feel like that's probably going to happen. Not guaranteed by any means, but I just feel like if the players have the opportunity to plan out everything, they're probably going to use it.
Sure.
Possibly to the expense of brevity. I feel like there have been times where, I think maybe when Jay was running his Eberron campaign, I think there was a time he let us do that. He let us have plan out our thing. It might have been that fight with 100 Githyanki. Does that sound familiar?
Possibly. I don't know. It's been a while.
Maybe. Anyway, I think you could do it. I think go ahead and try it out.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to break anything. I think it's definitely going to change the combat dynamic quite a bit. Because I've talked previously about how NPC or like monsters or NPCs really aren't meant to fit the same role as players. And so that's why I lean more towards letting the monsters act differently, because they're basically just meant to do one thing and then be killed. So I'm not going to put as much strategy into the enemies. Even if the enemies are intelligent, I'm still probably going to do relatively simple things with them.
Yeah. Like
intelligent enemy strategy is probably more going to be before the combat starts than during the combat.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know. That's just me though. If anybody has had any experience running anything else, let us know how it went. If you have any tips for running all the monsters separately that doesn't take forever and, get really clunky, I'd love to hear it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, our next question comes from Laith through email, and they ask, how do you balance your encounters?
Yeah, so encounter balance is a tricky thing.
Sure.
Because as I've talked about on previous episodes, like sometimes you think it's balanced and then the party wipes out all the enemies. Then other times you think it's balanced and the party gets wiped out before anybody can do anything.
Yeah, because there's like charts and stuff to determine like what's a hard encounter for this many players at this level, that sort of thing. And like the numbers could seem right, but the mechanics of each individual monster have a different thing to say about it.
Right. So it is hard because it is so dependent on dice rolls, especially in 5th edition. But I would say probably the best thing to do is to skew on the side of less powerful. However, try and use things that interact well with each other. So like instead of just putting like one big tough enemy or like a few moderately tough enemies together that all do the same thing, I would say maybe do 3 or 4 weak enemies, but they all have something that complements somebody else. Like maybe one of them has one of those things where I think it's goblins, if one of their allies is attacking the same target, they get advantage. And it doesn't specify that they have to be goblins if I'm thinking of the right thing. I know wolves do that. Wolves just have like if an ally, whether it is a wolf or not, is attacking the same enemy, you get advantage.
Yeah, it's so like the goblins one is sort of like the opposite of pack tactics, where it's giving the other person advantage. Is that right?
I think I might actually be thinking of something completely different.
But just in any case, things that play off of each other synergize well.
Right. Or like maybe something that has an ability that slows enemies or locks them in place, and then somebody else that has area attacks.
Right.
So they can lock everybody down and then hit them all. So like you want to do things that will make the enemies effective, but I think if you start with too strong of a base, that can get out of hand when it's really effective.
Mm-hmm. I like the use of was it gelatinous cubes and like skeletons or something, like because one of the oozes that doesn't eat bone but eats flesh.
Oh yeah,
and so like you can have skeletons inside the ooze and things like that. Sure.
I just think that like if it gets out of hand because it's too powerful, it's a lot easier. It's a lot harder to rein in like multiple tough enemies than multiple weaker enemies. And also if you have multiple weak enemies, like let's say it is goblins or kobolds or something, if the fight starts going too easy because the players are just, one-shotting kobolds left and right, it's easy to rationalize, more of them show up.
Yeah.
Whereas if it's like they're fighting a dragon and then, oh shoot, the dragon's going down real fast, a second dragon shows up.
Yeah.
You know, that you can do that too, but I just think that like I like to. I mean, I tend to run less deadly games to begin with, but even if you are trying to make a tougher encounter or just a well-balanced encounter, it's better to start low and then increase as needed than to start high, because it's hard. It might be hard to decrease as needed.
Yeah.
If you roll and you're like, oh shoot, I just one-shotted a player, it can be a little bit harder to be like, oh, he realized he left the oven on and then runs away or something, you know.
Well, I think one way, if you do find out that like the encounter you have is a little bit too strong, like midway through the battle or something like that, you could have it so, you know, something that one of the players does, like, you know, if you hit the, like, oh, you know, you bash its arm so it can't use its claw attack anymore. So like it's, you know, it doesn't have, like, if the if a monster's multi attack is just tearing through hit points, you know, more than you thought it would, then, you know, have something happen to where like, oh, it, you know, it can't use multi attack anymore. It only has one attack per turn now. Yeah. You know, have it be, you know, like it's, I think that's a little bit better. Having it be sort of like cinematic is better than saying like, you know, better than like fudging a dice roll and just saying it misses all the time. Like, you know, this thing that was hitting all the time is now suddenly missing all the time.
Right.
Or, you know, or purposely having the monster do something that puts it at a disadvantage, you know?
Sure. And I guess like what we're talking about is like ways to adjust an encounter once it's already made.
Right.
But I guess what I was just trying to get at is that like variety is probably going to help your encounters be more balanced than just using the same effective thing.
Right.
You know, doing a bunch of things all that complement each other is a way to make an encounter more powerful than it is while keeping it easy to deal with. So that will if you use that as your like go-to way to build encounters, it's probably going to be easier to balance them than having something really powerful that might one-shot somebody, might miss, and then get killed instantly.
Plus, if you're just using one thing, and if you reuse that thing, the players are going to figure out how to deal with it.
Sure.
So like it might be powerful the first time you use it. Mm-hmm. And if you use it again, they might still struggle with it. But then like that third time, if you're using the same monster or something around the same, they're going to know how to deal with it. And it's not going to be that challenging anymore. Whereas if you're using a bunch of different things and like, you know, synergizing them in different ways and having them work off of each other in different ways, like it's more of a puzzle having to deal with like, okay, we have these three different types of monsters that are all kind of working together. What's our best plan of action? Like, which one should we take out first? Yeah. Like, this one is healing the other ones, so maybe we should take that one out first. But this one is protecting the one that's healing that, so maybe we should take that one out first. And this one's doing a lot of damage, and our healer's going down fast. Maybe we need to take out that one first. You know, so
that situation is kind of easy to understand. A party that doesn't focus fire. Just saying.
Yeah. So, and like each individual monster is not that strong, and like, you know, their challenge rating might be moderate compared to your, but because you're like, oh, which one do we kill? You know, we need to figure something else because like, you know, like these monsters are working together so well that it's a problem if we don't do something about at least one of them.
Yeah. In general, I think that it is very important, and it's hard to do this early on, but as the campaign goes on, it's very important to keep track of what your party is capable of and also their style. Because if you know that, well, the wizard tends to blow all their most powerful spells really quickly, then you should take that into account when building encounters. Maybe have a really powerful encounter right at the beginning, and then maybe peter out a little bit as it goes on because you know that they've used all their most powerful stuff.
Right. Yeah.
You could use that as to your advantage to punish that player, for example, but you know, we're kind of talking about like balancing encounters rather than just making powerful encounters. If you just want to make a powerful encounter, there's lots of ways to do that.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to do that.
If you know that the party tends to not focus fire, then a bigger group of weaker enemies is going to go a lot further than it would with a different group.
Sure.
For example. So knowing what abilities they have, if you know that they if the party has an ability that, like the wizard always uses fire or something like that.
Yeah.
You could throw something in that is weak to fire that is maybe more powerful than you would normally throw at a group like that.
Yeah.
Because it has this weakness that the party is very likely to make use of.
Yeah, or something that's weak normally but has a resistance to fire.
Sure,
or something
exactly.
Like balance it the other way.
I've talked at length about how bad the Tarrasque is, and it's not bad because it is unbalanced stat-wise. It's bad because it is unbalanced compared to who is going to be fighting it. You are not going to have a 30th level party fighting the Tarrasque without the ability to fly. You're not going to have a 30th level party that got to 30th level having their only fighting style be get right up in the monster's face and let it attack you. You get to 30th level by being smart with what you fight and how you fight it.
Yeah.
So when you're building a very high level encounter, you have to take into account the party knows how to fight monsters. So if I have a big dumb monster with no ranged attack fight them, they're gonna find a way around it because they're good at this.
Yeah, because
you know what I mean?
Because the Tarrasque is made up to be this unstoppable beast, but it's only unstoppable if you're not including player characters in the equation.
Exactly. If the players do not know how their powers work, sure, that's going to be a tough fight. But if they know this ability that they got 25 levels ago, fly, then they're going to use it because why wouldn't they? Anyway, this is not an episode to complain about the Tarrasque.
Gabe versus the Tarrasque, part 4.
Well, but similarly, if you know that the party has really bad tactics, like maybe you started at 10th level and none of them have played a 10th level character before, you can use weaker monsters and the party is less likely to know how to take on those monsters effectively.
Yeah.
So I know that like the game kind of tries to treat encounter balance like it is a formulaic thing, but it really isn't. There's only so much of the formula that stands up 100% of the time, you know? So part of it is building encounters. And for when you're building encounters, I recommend variety rather than just focusing on one big powerful thing, but also, know your party, know your players, know what they're likely to do.
Sure.
You know, that way you can tailor the encounter best to suit them. So I think that'll do it for our normal weekly questions this week. However, we have our social media discussion questions for the week. So our question from last week was, have you ever had a good experience in a group with a DMPC and what made it good?
Yeah.
So I don't think you've had many experiences with DMPC.
Not many, and I wouldn't say any of them are particularly bad.
Okay.
But like you know, it was the worst case was like we just forgot that they were there.
Sure. You weren't in the group yet, but I used a DMPC in the first campaign I ever ran with Jeff and Steve, and Jamie was in that group too. I had a character from a previous campaign show up and it was real bad. It was real bad.
Oh no.
So I'm glad you were not in that group because it was real bad. But as far as like playing in a group with a good DMPC, I haven't. And my opinions on DMPCs are very strong. But I wanted to see, did anybody have a good experience? And so that's what I asked. So on Facebook, Justin from Crit Academy says, when I was first learning the game, the DM had a PC he used to help us fully understand the types of things we could do, as well as the risks involved in being an adventurer. In the village, he was called a guardian. After about 5 sessions, he died and made us sad. It wasn't bad at all, but I've had way more negative experiences than positive ones in this regard.
So that's a cool idea.
That is
using DMPC early on in the game just to kind of like you know, there's always that there in a lot of games there's those characters that like they show up, they kind of help you out, get you started, and then they either like die or disappear or something like that, and they maybe become a plot point or something later on.
And I mean that's what I did with my character when I ran that first campaign. But I didn't stop there. I didn't have him die. I had him continue to show up. And one of the adventures was literally the players were just following him and then watched from the sidelines as he fought a big monster. It was real bad, guys. I'm sorry. Jay, Steve, Jamie, if any of you are listening to this, I'm sorry, guys. It was real bad.
Hey, I'm sure it's fine.
Yeah. And then Sean M says, friends and I hadn't quite set up a party with healers heading into the Emerald Spire. My GM set up a hireable healer in town to attend adventures. She was a silent partner, there to mostly support as appropriate as she can, and only a couple times point out things we may be missing to complete a level of the dungeon. Our GM was careful not to insert roleplay unless absolutely necessary. She mostly shrugged her shoulders if we were looking for her opinion on the tasks ahead. And that is the best way to use a DMPC. But again, my argument is, even in that case, it's unnecessary.
Sure.
I mean, there are other ways. I guess it might be harder, but there are other ways to get that information across to the player. I don't know. I'm not going to tell anybody how they should run their game. I'm just saying, like, that's why I don't use one, because I would rather not even introduce it.
Sure.
Steve A says, I had what was supposed to be a one-and-done NPC turn into a DMPC because the players liked him so much. He was a monk named Caleb with a heavy southern drawl who works for the Lord of Waterdeep. He was just supposed to get them from the docks to the castle, but my players wanted him around constantly because they loved him so much. My girlfriend's rogue, and he even developed a romantic relationship.
Ooh.
So, okay, all right. If the players want them around,
right,
go for it.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say anything about that.
Yeah.
Just, I doubt that happens very often.
Sure.
Over on Reddit, Javokler says, yes, my DM growing up played one, and since we only had 3 total people in the group, including the DM, we would hire people to come along on our adventure, so they were our hirelings. It worked because they were never used for story, never took the stage from the players, and were simply support for battle or scenarios when we simply just needed an extra body.
Sure.
Yeah, again, that's the best way to use it. If you ever use a DMPC or an NPC or whatever, the most important thing is never take the spotlight from the players.
Right.
Reddit user Vincent Takeda says, we had a DMPC for decades. Our table only has 3 players most of the time, so the DM usually has someone along for support and certainly a support class. Bit of a bard-like Marty Stew or show-stealing ham, and also a Deus Ex Machina kind of guy, which are notoriously bad GMPC things, but it's never seemed like the big deal people make it out to be. Our party isn't very thespian, so his antics do lighten the mood, getting us out of all business battle mode. Never mischievous Kender-type drama. Always human now that I think about it. Never stole the show in combat or solved any puzzles, but we don't seem to mind being pulled out of the fire every once in a while.
So, it's sort of like a comic relief sort of character.
Yeah.
Like, he's not going to be part of the main story, but, like, every once in a while kind of comes in with a little joke just to kind of lighten the mood or something.
Sure. Looks like we didn't get any responses on Twitter, but over on Discord, Adam B says, I can't answer this with good. Sorry, Gabe. And then Damien mentions this too, but like when I said good, I put it in all caps. I didn't mean it as in like really good. I just meant good as opposed to really bad.
Right. Because your opinion of them is...
My vocal opinion is that they are only bad.
Right. So, like, you're just putting the emphasis on
right.
On
so
the word.
Damien from Adventures in Aurelia says, I don't know about all caps good, but it wasn't bad. It was years ago. But to keep the answer short, it was leaning on the good side because the NPC was related to the plot. We rescued her. And she's only really butted into the game because we were stumped or in combat when she was directly threatened. The DM didn't try to bring her in as a PC that was being played by the DM. She fit into the correct role as a long-term accompanying NPC who could help guide as needed. To note, this was also during mine and a couple others at the table's first time playing in a tabletop RPG. Mason says, in our Out of the Abyss campaign, the DM played quite a few NPCs who would journey with the party, but essentially treated them as niche specialists that could fill the gaps in our skill proficiencies from time to time, and then fade back into the background. The roleplay between us was hilarious, though, as he really hammed up the personalities.
Sure.
And I guess there is a distinction to be made between an NPC and a DMPC, but that's right. Another discussion for another day we've kind of had before, and we'll probably get to again.
These definitely fit more on the just regular NPC side of the spectrum, but
Sure.
But because they are regularly there, and they do interact mechanically,
right. And then Preston Penguin R says, not really, because it was an NPC I controlled, sort of. The group needed a support, I thought, and I had a bard run with the group. I asked the group before he did anything, and I just roleplayed him. I made his personality fit his not talking all the time. He was really just a hireling more than anything. So, again, probably more of an NPC, but, still good to hear about good stories of even NPCs in groups. And so that's all of the answers for our previous week's social media question. So this week's social media question is going to be, what is the name of your favorite town that you've ever been to in an RPG, in a tabletop role-playing game?
Sure. Gosh.
I've got one that is kind of the opposite. That first campaign I ever ran. Oh shoot, that wasn't the name of a town. Well, okay, this is a bit of a tangent, but sort of related. I ran the very first campaign I ever ran. I was real bad at coming up with names. So the town, I don't remember what the town was called, but it was right next to the lake of
Yeah.
Yep.
Right. That's right. I remember hearing about that.
The national greeting was, "Hey, how's it going?"
Where does "By the Five Nations, how are you" come from?
That's from Eberron. "By the Five Nations" is an expression used in Eberron, but it's not like, it's meant as like
like an "oh my gosh."
Like, yeah, an "oh my gosh." It's like, "Oh, by the Five Nations, how did you survive that?"
My stars and garters.
Exactly. But I would always joke around that, no, it's "by the Five Nations, how you doing?" And put your hand out to shake their hand.
Like, by gum.
Exactly, yeah.
I can't really think of. I know of Cauldron because I've been there a lot.
Cauldron's pretty good.
Cauldron's pretty good. Gosh, what was the town by Diamond Lake? Was it just called Diamond Lake?
Yeah. The town was called Diamond Lake.
Was it? Okay.
Yeah. I don't know if the lake had its own name. I think it was just.
I mean, that's
the lake.
I think those two are the most memorable ones.
Okay.
Like that. Well, Cauldron, just because we've started that campaign like 3 times already.
Yeah, and I mean, Cauldron. It's a name that is very evocative of what the town is. It's the inside of a volcano.
Yeah, and
that's just really cool. When I was playing as
they're called calderas.
Yes, it was in the caldera of a volcano. When I was playing the campaign with Chris, and Jay, and Melissa, and Nick, and all of them, when I was playing as Chronic S Block, in that campaign, I have two towns to name. We started in a town called Duval, and it was like our town. We all developed parts of it. Like Chris's character had a bar, my character had like a mansion and a butler, and Jay's character inherited this like rundown old house that was built on top of like an archmage's study. That was a really fun town. And then also my character found he like came across a little crap water town out in the middle of nowhere and then became its mayor and renamed it to Archdale, which was the name of the street that Chris lived on. And I think Archdale is a really cool name. So probably that one. And then Archdale is the name of the campaign. When I started the Keepers of the List campaign, that's the name of the town that I had everybody start in.
Cool. Yeah, that's the town where Quest Day is held.
Yes. And there is, in my own personal campaign setting, that there is continuity between that and the campaign where that town got started.
Cool.
Anyway, so yeah, those are our answers. Any of you listeners out there, let us know what you think. Of course, by the time this episode has come out, we've probably already recorded the next episode. So if you haven't given us an answer, it won't be read on the show. However, we will still read it.
Sure.
So maybe someday we'll come up with a better way to do this. I don't know.
I don't know.
Anyway, so those are all of our questions for today. So I think that we should let's take a deep breath. I keep saying let's take a deep breath after I've taken a breath. I keep doing that wrong. Anyway, so we've taken a deep breath now, a couple in one of our cases. Let's lay back. Let's remember those who have come before us as we toss another log onto the funeral pyre.
Gabe, we're out of logs. Hold on, let me chop down this tree here. All right.
Timber. All right. Thank you, Jeff. Now let's toss that onto the funeral pyre. Today's funeral pyre was submitted by Reddit user K. Heaney, and the story goes, murdered by an entire village of pirates.
Oh my.
We were very overconfident teenagers with a GM, the friend's dad, who had maybe gone easy on us a little in the past. So we thought we could take on 20 pirates at once. We could not, and we deserved that reality. I don't think I've actually died permanently in any other games, but then my friends tend not to actually continue campaigns after 4 to 6 sessions as they get bored of trying to schedule things.
Sure.
We've all been there.
Yeah.
So in a way, you could say this funeral pyre is the death of the gaming group in all of our hearts.
Oh no, that's really sad.
It is very sad. So let's raise a glass in memory of the unnamed character who shouldn't have taken 20, maybe taken 10. Clink.
I like that.
I actually had something else planned for that, but that came to me while I was reading
that.
So that'll do it for today. To submit questions for us to discuss, items for the Dragon's Horde, or stories for the funeral pyre, please email us at interpartyconflict@gmail.com. For show notes, links to media mentioned on the show, and running lists of questions and magic items, go to interpartyconflict.com. Join the discussion on social media. Find us on Facebook, facebook.com/interpartyconflict, on Reddit at r/interpartyconflict, on our Interparty Discord, or on Twitter at InPartyConflict for our weekly social media questions. Your answers might end up on the show. Find us on iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher, YouTube, anywhere you download podcasts. Please rate, review, subscribe, or just tell a friend. If you'd like to support the show, check out the rewards at patreon.com/InterPartyConflict. There's a few different tiers, so anything you can spare, even $1 a month, would go towards making the show better, and you'll get bonus content for it. Jeff, tell us about FriendQuest.
Go to YouTube and search FriendQuest. You'll find us playing video games, having a good time. You can also find us on Twitch at twitch.tv/FriendQuestStream.
Awesome.
And come join us.
Cool. You can also check out my side project, the Arcade Memories podcast. If you'd like to submit your own childhood memories of going to the arcade, you can record them or write them to me at arcadememoriespodcast@gmail.com. Also, head over to bit.ly/interpartyconflict to take a short survey about our show, what you like, what you don't like, etc. And just for taking it, you'll get 2 free printable board games courtesy of Mary and Tom over at hollandspiel.com. And our music is made by Boxcat Games from Nameless the Hacker's RPG. So, Jeff, until next time,
Focus fire.
there you go.